if we can get on with a mini-series, maybe it'll be 3 episodes, maybe it'll be 5, and then pick up the series maybe a month or 2 later. Give the overseas studio time to catch up, because, again, a lot of your initial expense and time is spent on all that upfront building. So we were running right up. I mean, I think literally the day before that first part of the miniseries aired is the day the network got it, finally. Maybe 3 or 4 days before.
So that's why we had that gap between the miniseries.
Because literally, and we still are basically trying to catch up to ourselves.
I work for the post-production company that does all of the finals and all the final deliverables, and we're delivering tapes like the day before it airs.
Yes.
So
we're getting a little better now.
Yeah.
And Polygon is our Japanese studio, and they're incredible. They're the only guys who could have pulled this off. But the miniseries grew out of both necessity, but then once we had it, we were like, oh no, let's really blow it out. Let's make it 5. Can we do 5 by this end of the year? No, but let's try anyway.
We did it.
And we did it, exactly, which means now they expect it from us every year. So
what about,
that was stupid.
So what about doing another miniseries type story? Maybe not 3
I don't think we do 5, but you're definitely going to have multi-parters coming down the line.
Like at the end of the season or next
Not even
season?
necessarily. I think already if you look at the storytelling, there are groups of episodes you could put together. They're kind of thematically related. It's important that each episode live on its own. You want people to be able to come to the show as new viewers at any point during your airing and be able to catch up pretty quickly and be interested. But we like telling complicated stories. We like showing growth of character over time. We like turning a really important piece of Transformers mythology into something more than a one-off. So I think both within the body of a season, and yes, we definitely build toward, in our minds, something of a mini-series at the end of every season.
As a writer-producer, what do you prefer creatively? Do you like a season where you can do like 26, so you know you have 26 and you can do a long story arc, or do you prefer an abbreviated like 13 episodes?
I always prefer more. I mean, it's a thing where once you're in the middle of it, you're damning yourself for wanting more, because those last couple are always the hardest. But no, knowing you have 26 and you can actually roll character stuff out more slowly and really grow relationships, that's always better. I mean, it also lets you, it's easier to get the best crew because you're offering more episodes. It's easier to work a slightly better deal with your post house because you're guaranteeing more episodes. Every penny is on screen. The more episodes you know you're going to do up front, the better all around.
Yeah. Speaking of the mini, how did you get The Rock?
That was Chris Menorsi. We literally went, who would be really cool to kill? You know, who would everyone assume was like, oh my God, he must be the star of the show. That's going to be amazing. In a very Steven Seagal, what's that movie on the plane with Kurt Russell? Thank you. Yes, we're absolutely aping from that. I have no bones about it. But from a very executive decision sort of thing, who would be a name that would really surprise people that we got him, and then they'd be like, they just killed him. What the? And so we actually we all sat around and came up with like 3 names. The Rock was number 1. KO said, yeah, we can call him. They did, and he actually came in. This was not a voice patch. He came in, he did his zombie voices, he did his grunts and growls. He was a pleasure. He was really and fantastic. You know, I hope we get to use him again.
At the same time, it was kind of mirrored in G.I. Joe with Weems died. Was that sort of intentional that both shows were kind of start the same way, or? You
know, it wasn't. Obviously, I do both shows, and historically, if you look at my history of television, you probably see the same story in multiple shows. But it just worked out that way. They had different writing staffs. The decision to kill a character was actually made for very different reasons, and as you watch the overall arc, you'll see that they play out in different ways. But it is one of those things where if you want to surprise an audience, and I do think brand new network, umpteenth iteration of a particular franchise, we want to do something to surprise the audience, and it just worked for us. We needed, really in G.I. Joe was more important. In G.I. Joe I needed something to drive them into their road trip.
With G.I. Joe also, I mean, just as an experienced viewer, whatever, you could sort of tell, oh, he's going to come back later in the season. With Cliff Jumper, it was a little bit more, no, like he's voiced by The Rock, he's probably dead.
No, here's the thing. We were very specific. On G.I. Joe, you never actually see him die.
Right.
On Transformers, you don't just see him die, you see him turn into a zombie, and then we chopped him into little pieces. So we wanted to make really clear that we had killed that character for that very reason. We didn't want fans to think, oh, they're just doing it's a false death, they're going to bring him back. No. I assure you he is dead. If he comes back in flashback.
How do you guys deal with stuff like that too, where you actually do kill off a character in an entertainment property that is supposed to span such an age range and a demographic to where little kids, don't get freaked out by that?
Right.
I mean, kids of today are completely desensitized. I mean, back in the '80s, that would have never happened. The planes blow up and everybody parachutes out. But is that a hurdle for you guys as writers and creators to be able to do that for something that's going to air for such a large demographic?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a discussion we have internally, absolutely. And there is a point of view that kids are getting older faster now. Look, Transformers is not a preschool show, obviously, so there's a certain level of emotional maturity.
They got rescue bots.
Although even that's not a true preschool show, a little bit older. We sit around. I think the choice we made is if we're going to do it, then we actually need to make it a big event. What I don't kind of like is when you kill off a character and there's no repercussion, there's no emotional reaction. In some movies, for example, I think somebody's not even sure if a character died; they're just gone suddenly. So we decided if we were going to do it, we were going to make it have a real resonance with our core characters. This was going to be, and the truth is, unfortunately, by the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, most kids have dealt with some death, whether it's a pet or a family member or whatever. I just think you have to give them, you have to treat them a little bit adult-like. They know what it is. Treat it real. Don't make it a joke. Don't make it a little brush-up thing. Treat it real.
Do you ship for Duke and Scarlet or Scarlet and Snake Eyes?
Wow, that's a very good question.
I can't tell from watching the show.
Well, thank you, because that is obviously
It seems like
by
you're
design.
going one way, and then it seems like you're going the other.
I suspect Scarlett would have an easier time taking Duke home to her folks than she would Snake Eyes. But beyond that, you will see. Some of that will play out over the course of this season as well.
Are we going to see any sub-factions in the show? Minicons, other groups of Transformers?
Dinobots and Secticons.
At least one of those things you mentioned, definitely. Again, the only limitation we have is sort of what we can afford and time-wise to build. So it's not like we can do everything, but we have definitely tried to pick and choose, and then not just bring them in, but find a reason to bring them in and a way to use them and make it additive to the series, as opposed to just, oh, isn't that cool? They brought in that thing from before. So we really try to find a way to make it integral to the storyline, have a place across an entire arc. Because again, for us to do a one-off, it's just not worth it. We have to make it a part of the storyline.
How about bots changing factions? Like we had Jetfire in G1, he switched to Decepticon, Dinobot.
I think if you've already seen all 15 episodes that have aired so far, you may already be getting a bit of a sense that there are some who are having moments of questioning their allegiance. Again, that's just good storytelling. That's fun. So yes, we definitely want to play with that. We have purposely, obviously, built a rift building between Starscream and Optimus, so that we can then play what happens when that rift gets too big.
Now, you say you want to go back to the origins and the history and stuff. Will we ever learn about? I know this is way out. Where did the Transformers come from?
I think in Prime, we're not going to get into that because we're kind of living in the moment of this show. But look, in a perfect world, and this is not just this is discussions we've had internally. We're hoping to do multiple Transformers show. Maybe Prime finishes its arc by episode 65, but then we do another Transformers show.
Episode 65.
Created the Transformers. They turned Cybertron into a big robot factory, and then they rebuilt and then revolted against the Quintessence. Something like that, right?
No comment.
Quintessence created the Transformers.
There is a book that got published 6 months ago called Exodus, which tells some of the kind of, from the multiple mythologies over the years, they tried to condense it into one kind of key mythology that is now look, I would love to go back and tell the story of when Optimus and Megatron met. That'd be a blast.
And Vector Sigma, he was there too.
How much of the show is for people who are not familiar with Transformers, and how much is it for fans? Are you trying to do both?
You have to do both. I mean, I think the same is true of G.I. Joe. I think you cannot turn off the fan base that has stuck by both these brands for so long. And the truth is, again, we come to it as fans and people work on the show. You want to do the fun little stuff like having the original voices of blank play the parents. I mean, it's just stuff you want to do. So at the same time, though, the whole idea is to get a new generation of viewers involved who will then grow up with. And by the way, obviously that's Toy's intention as well, but just from the show itself, I have a 7-year-old daughter. I want where she can sit down with me and be interested in the show. And actually, for whatever reason, she likes G.I. Joe better than Transformers. All parents, you want to be able to watch with your kids. You want to introduce them to this world that was important to you when you were a kid. And so we're really cognizant of trying to do both. And from the reaction so far, I think we've done a decent job, actually, of straddling the line, of giving the fans fun stuff, Easter eggs, but not thereby disenfranchising the people who are new to it.
Sort of like bridging that gap, the generation gap. Like I get a lot of stuff like Activision's Rock Band. They bridge a lot of gaps
Yes.
between their sons and their fathers, and
The truth is that everyone listens to the Beatles. It's not everyone listens to the Beatles. The 4-year-old kid listens to the Beatles, which is you get to share that with them. And by the way, this is true not just of our desire to appeal to both fans and newcomers, but in the writing of the shows, as you probably noticed. The hope is that we've got enough emotional clarity and thematic clarity, and we have to get from A to B for a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. But obviously, we're throwing a lot of stuff in there that is going to go over their heads. I loved when I watched Bullwinkle the first time through, and then as I got older, watched it again, and there were a whole bunch of jokes I got the second time.
All the communist
Sid and Marty
hooks and
Krofft
stuff.
shows. That's what I grew up on.
Any Bugs
They're
Bunny
insane Bugs
Yeah.
Bunny cartoons. That's actually a blast, and you actually go back and watch again and again because of that. So both of these shows are written. They're not written down. They're never written down. They're written so that age, the younger age, can keep up and get invested, but that they can come back in 3 years and get a whole bunch of stuff out of it they didn't get the first time around.
I know you said you guys don't want to contradict the movies, so I'm curious if since you collaborate with the writers of the live action movies, have you seen any of the live action movies? And I know there was that featurette where you kind of, Bob and Alex, they took some sort of digs at themselves in the live action movies. I was wondering what is your word on the Transformers live action movie franchise?
Look, obviously, everybody on the show has seen the first 2 movies, and we do have the guys who wrote them with us. Quite honestly, the only thing I've seen of the 3rd movie was the footage that Michael Bay showed at Toy Fair at a Hasbro. I have not seen the rest of the movie. So
the last 2 movies. What's your
I think we all really kind of connected to the first movie and the core idea of a boy in his car and a boy and a girl. I think some of that may have gotten lost in the sentence.
That's fair.
You guys chose to
By the way, I think
do.
Alex and Bob will tell you the same thing.
You guys chose to do a traditional animation with G.I. Joe, and you went CGI with Transformers. Was there a reason for that, or?
Yes, very specifically, I think the feeling was that given what was in the zeitgeist of the Transformers, that we almost had to do a CG show. That the kids growing up now had grown up with that live action-y look. So from the beginning, the idea was, and also I think to separate us from the last couple of Transformers cartoons that have been done. On G.I. Joe, it actually was a back and forth, and ultimately, because we wanted to make G.I. Joe a road show with a different location every week, and because we wanted to leave it much more wide open to characters we can introduce, we do one-offs in G.I. Joe. We have a classic character for just one episode and then go away. We can't do that in CG. We can't build that character and not use it again. We can't create a new location every week. So we decided to do a more traditional 2D. Having said that, we ended up having to go to 3 different Korean studios and breaking up that first season just to get it done. Because we had even less time to do G.I. Joe than we did Transformers.
Oh boy.
And quite honestly, if you watch a whole season, I believe you will see the quality of animation gets better and better as the season goes on, as just the studios kind of get used to things, as everybody's working on all cylinders, as we have more assets to take advantage of and reuse. Because even in 2D, you're going to have 3D vehicles in our show, so obviously reuse there. But there would have been no way to do G.I. Joe on a TV budget in CG. Too many characters, too many worlds, too much stuff.
Regarding G.I. Joe Renegades, some fans were critical about the origin of Snake Eyes, even though all of that material, it's all out there, it's all been told before. For the series. But is Snake Eyes a better character, being more of an enigma, or is it cool to kind of explore the origin as well? Some fans were upset because he's pulled this sort of faceless ninja we don't know anything about.
Look, I think we try to do both. I think that for us, we wanted to dig into his origin because we colors who he is now. And actually, it's more complicated than you know at this moment. It will begin to reveal itself over the course of 26. At the same time, though, we also want to keep him a bit of an enigma. So, on G.I. Joe Renegades, there are seemingly huge chunks of time where Snake Eyes is gone. And no one really knows where he is or what he's doing. So we've tried to actually have our cake and eat it too. Which is what I try to do.
Transformers movie Prime, maybe? Or Prime movie?
Discussions are absolutely going on. I would love that. Everybody would love that on our end. So if the fans support the show to a degree where there's a feeling like it could be successful as a feature, then I would have to imagine that becomes a real conversation for Hasbro.
Was there ever a thought of trying to get the 2 shows to cross over?
it's not just a conversation, it's an ongoing conversation. A little bit harder with a cell show versus a CG show, but I think, look, the dream for everybody in this room is a G.I. Joe Transformers crossover. As long as I'm around, I will continue to try to drive that dream forward.
Cobra Commander was in the original Transformers cartoon.
Yeah.
So,
You've spoken, sorry. You've spoken previously about Transformers Exodus and how they're trying to bring all those continuities together. How does that limit you in terms of, since Prime falls into that continuity?